What happens when a harmless bet turns into a disaster that destroys a marriage? How could one night of flirting for laughs lead to legal documents turning up at my office, right in front of everyone I know? Can my husband really take everything from me because of one stupid mistake? My name is Valerie. I am 32 years old. And I am about to tell you how I lost my entire life in the span of 3 songs. The neon lights of the Cobalt Lounge cast an electric purple glow across my face as I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. My hands trembled slightly as I reapplied my lipstick. The deep red color made me feel bold, dangerous. At 32, I still had it. I could still turn heads. I could still make men want me. Lucas might not notice anymore, but other men certainly would. Lucas, my husband. Just thinking of his name made me roll my eyes. He was probably at home right now, sitting in his beige armchair, reading one of his endless files. Lucas was a forensic accountant. Even his job title sounded dry. Dust, numbers, spreadsheets. He was stable, he was responsible, he was reliable, and he was boring me to death. Come on, Val. Sienna's voice echoed from outside the bathroom door. We're waiting. I smoothed down my black dress. It was tight. Tighter than anything I would wear to a PTA meeting. I walked back to our table where my 3 closest friends sat nursing their cocktails. The bar was packed for a Friday night. It was filled with young professionals unwinding after a long week. The music pulsed through the speakers. It created an atmosphere of liberation, of possibility. All right, ladies, Sienna announced. Her eyes sparkled with mischief. She had been divorced for 2 years and claimed it was the best thing that ever happened to her. Time for the challenge we discussed. Valerie, you've been complaining for months about feeling invisible, about Lucas taking you for granted. Here's your chance to prove you've still got it. My stomach fluttered with nervous excitement. Remind me of the rules again. Simple. Sienna grinned. Pick any guy in this bar, a complete stranger, and get him to dance with you. But not just any dance, we're talking full-on flirtation. Make him want you. Make him think he has a chance. If you can keep him interested for at least 3 songs, you win the bet. And what exactly do I win? I asked, though I was already scanning the room for potential targets. Bragging rights, laughed Chloe, another friend. And the satisfaction of knowing you can still drive men crazy. My phone buzzed on the table. A text from Lucas. Hey honey, working late tonight? Hope you're having fun with the girls. Lily is asleep. Love you. I stared at the message. I felt a familiar surge of irritation. Working late again. Always working, always responsible, always trusting. When was the last time he looked at me the way men used to? When was the last time he made me feel desired? Wanted? Irresistible? Earth to Valerie. Sienna waved her hand in front of my face. Don't tell me you're chickening out. Not a chance, I said. I slid my phone into my purse without responding to Lucas's text. I turned it on silent. I'm just choosing my target. That was when I saw him. Tall. Dark-haired. Probably in his late 20s. He was standing near the bar, wearing a fitted black shirt that showed off his athletic build. When he smiled at the bartender, I caught a glimpse of perfect white teeth. He was exactly the kind of man who would have pursued me relentlessly 10 years ago. Him, I pointed discreetly. The guy in the black shirt. Sienna followed my gaze and whistled appreciatively. Good choice. He's gorgeous. Think you can handle him? Please, I scoffed. I stood up and adjusted my dress. Watch and learn. I made my way through the crowded bar. My confidence built with each step. The alcohol had loosened my inhibitions just enough to make me feel fearless. I positioned myself near the bar, close enough to catch his attention, but not so close as to seem desperate. It didn't take long. He noticed me within minutes. His eyes traveled appreciatively over my figure. When he smiled at me, I felt a thrill I hadn't experienced in years. Can I buy you a drink? He asked, moving closer. I'm Caleb. Valerie, I replied. I let my fingers linger in his grip just a moment longer than necessary. I didn't mention my last name. I certainly didn't mention the ring I had slipped off my finger and hidden in my purse 5 minutes ago. Beautiful name for a beautiful woman, he said. I felt myself blush like a teenager. The conversation flowed easily. Caleb was charming, funny, and most importantly, completely captivated by me. When he asked me to dance, I accepted without hesitation. On the dance floor, I let myself go completely. The music was sensual and hypnotic. I moved my body in ways I hadn't in years. Caleb's hands found my waist, pulling me closer. I could feel the heat radiating from his body. I could smell his cologne mixed with the faint scent of whiskey on his breath. "You're incredible," he whispered in my ear. His breath was warm against my skin. I threw my head back and laughed. I felt more alive than I had in months. This was what I'd been missing. This electricity, this passion, this feeling of being truly desired. From the corner of my eye, I could see my friends watching from our table. Their faces were a mixture of amusement and admiration. I was winning the bet spectacularly. The first song ended, but Caleb didn't let go. "One more?" he asked. His voice was husky with desire. "Absolutely," I breathed. The second song was even more intimate. Caleb's hands roamed my back. I found myself pressing closer to him, reveling in the attention. Other couples on the dance floor seemed to fade away, until it felt like we were the only two people in the room. "Are you here alone?" Caleb asked as we swayed together. For a moment, I hesitated. The responsible part of my brain, the part that sounded suspiciously like Lucas, told me to mention my husband, to set boundaries, to remember my marriage vows. But the reckless part of me, the part that had been dormant for too long, whispered something different. "For tonight, yes," I said. "I'm completely free." Caleb's smile widened. He spun me around, making me laugh with delight. When he pulled me back against him, his hand settled lower on my back, and I didn't pull away. The third song began, and I knew I'd won the bet, but I didn't want to stop. For the first time in years, I felt like myself again. Not just Lucas's wife, not just Lily's mother, but Valerie, a woman who could make men lose their minds with desire. "You know," Caleb said, his lips close to my ear, "this doesn't have to end when the music stops." Before I could respond, I caught a glimpse of movement near the bar's entrance. A figure in a dark coat stood silhouetted against the doorway, watching the dance floor intently. Something about the posture seemed familiar. The rigid shoulders. The way he stood perfectly still in the chaos. But when I blinked and looked again, the figure was gone. A chill ran down my spine. But I shook it off. I was being paranoid. Lucas was at home, asleep, or buried in spreadsheets. He had no idea where I was or what I was doing. And maybe that was exactly the problem. I stumbled through the front door at nearly 2 in the morning. My heels clicked loudly on the hardwood floor. The house was dark, except for the small lamp Lucas always left on in the living room. I kicked off my shoes and tiptoed toward the stairs, hoping to avoid any awkward conversations until morning. "How was your night?" I jumped, my heart raced. Lucas was sitting in his armchair, still fully dressed. A cup of cold coffee sat on the side table next to him. "Jesus, Lucas, you scared me to death," I said, pressing my hand to my chest. "What are you doing sitting in the dark, like some kind of creeper?" "Waiting for my wife to come home," he said quietly. His voice was calm, but there was something underneath it that I couldn't quite identify. "I texted you earlier." "I know. I saw it. I was having fun with the girls. You know how it is when we get together. We lose track of time." I moved toward the stairs, eager to escape to the safety of our bedroom. "It's almost 2 in the morning, Valerie." I turned back to face him. Irritation flared in my chest. "So? I'm a grown woman, Lucas. I don't have a curfew." "I never said you did. I was just worried when you didn't respond to my text." "Well, as you can see, I'm perfectly fine. Can we please do this in the morning? I'm exhausted." Lucas stood up slowly. I noticed he looked tired. Really tired. "Where exactly did you girls go tonight?" "Just some bar downtown. Nothing fancy. We danced a little, had some drinks, caught up on gossip. Normal girl stuff." The lies came easily, rolling off my tongue like I'd been practicing them. "Which bar?" "God, Lucas! What is this? 20 questions?" I snapped. "Why does it matter which bar?" "It doesn't," he said, but his eyes never left my face. "I'm just trying to make conversation with my wife." "Well, your wife is drunk and tired and wants to go to bed. Can the interrogation wait until tomorrow?" Something flickered across Lucas's face. Hurt, maybe? Or disappointment? But it was gone so quickly I might have imagined it. "Of course," he said. "Sleep well, Valerie." I climbed the stairs without another word. already planning how I'd tell the story to Sienna tomorrow. Lucas's jealousy was almost cute in a pathetic way. If only he knew what he was really jealous of. The next morning, I woke up alone. Lucas's side of the bed was already made, which meant he'd been up for hours. I could hear him moving around downstairs, probably making breakfast for Lily before her soccer game. I pulled on my robe and padded downstairs to find them both in the kitchen. Lily was eating cereal while Lucas packed her sports bag. "Morning, sunshine," I said, ruffling our daughter's hair. "Ready for your big game?" Lily looked up at me with those serious brown eyes she'd inherited from her father. "Are you coming to watch, Mommy?" "Of course, baby. Wouldn't miss it." Lucas glanced at me over Lily's head. "You sure? You seemed pretty tired last night." "I'm fine," I said, pouring myself a cup of coffee. "A little hangover never killed anyone." "What's a hangover?" Lily asked innocently. "It's when Mommy drinks too much wine and feels yucky the next day," I explained. I shot Lucas a warning look when he opened his mouth to object. "Why do you drink wine if it makes you feel yucky?" "Because sometimes grown-ups need to have fun, sweetheart. Even if Daddy doesn't understand what fun means." Lucas's jaw tightened, but he didn't say anything in front of Lily. Instead, he finished packing her bag and checked his watch. "We need to leave in 10 minutes, he said. "The game starts at 9. "I'll be ready," I promised. But as I headed upstairs to shower, I heard Lily's small voice asking, "Daddy, why don't you know what fun means?" And Lucas's quiet response, "I do know, sweetheart. Daddy and Mommy just have different ideas about what fun looks like." 2 weeks later, we were gathered at Lucas's mother's house for their monthly family dinner. Evelyn had been hosting these gatherings for as long as I'd known Lucas. They were always a mix of good food and passive-aggressive family drama. Tonight felt different, though. There was a tension in the air that I couldn't quite place. "So Valerie," Evelyn said as she passed around her famous lasagna, "Lucas tells me you've been having quite the social life lately." I shot a look at my husband. He was focused intently on cutting Lily's food. "Just the usual girls' nights out. Nothing too exciting." "Oh, I don't know about that," I continued, feeling bold. Maybe it was the wine. Or maybe it was the way Lucas had been walking on eggshells around me for the past 2 weeks. But I decided to have some fun with the story. "Actually, I won a bet a couple of weeks ago that I'm pretty proud of." "What kind of bet?" asked Marcus, Lucas's younger brother. "Well," I said, settling back in my chair with a smile, "my friends dared me to prove I could still turn heads. So I went to this bar downtown and picked out the most gorgeous guy in the place. Had him eating out of my hand within minutes." The table went quiet. Lucas's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. Evelyn's expression turned to stone. "You did what?" Evelyn asked. Her voice was dangerously low. "Oh, relax, Evelyn. It was harmless fun. I danced with him for a few songs. Let him buy me a drink. Made him think he had a chance. It was like being 25 again." "While you're married to my son?" "While I'm a grown woman who doesn't need permission to dance," I shot back. "Lucas wasn't exactly complaining when I came home that night. Were you, honey?" Lucas finally looked up from his plate. His face was pale, and there was something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Not anger exactly, but something colder, more final. "Actually, I was," he said quietly. "Oh, please." "You barely said 2 words to me," because I was trying to process what I'd witnessed. The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. I felt my stomach drop to my feet. "What you witnessed?" I repeated. My voice was barely above a whisper. "I was there, Valerie. At the Cobalt Lounge. I saw everything." The room erupted in chaos. Evelyn gasped audibly. Marcus dropped his fork with a clatter. Lily looked around the table with wide, confused eyes. "You were?" "What?" I managed to choke out. "I finished my project early that night. I decided to surprise you. I thought maybe I could join you and your friends for a drink." He set his knife down. The click against the porcelain plate was deafening. Imagine my surprise when I walked into that bar and saw my wife grinding against some stranger on the dance floor. It wasn't grinding, it was just dancing. "You let him put his hands all over you." You whispered in his ear. "You told him you were single. How? How could you possibly know what I told him?" "Because I stayed and watched, Valerie. I watched my wife flirt with another man for over an hour. I watched her act like she'd never been happier in her life." "Lucas," Marcus said quietly, "maybe we should." "No," Lucas interrupted. His voice was still eerily calm. I think it's time everyone knew exactly what kind of woman I'm married to. How dare you? I exploded, jumping to my feet. How dare you spy on me and then ambush me like this in front of your family? I didn't spy on you. I came to surprise my wife. And instead, I got to watch her humiliate me in public. I didn't humiliate anyone. I danced with someone. It's not like I slept with him. Oh, well, that's a relief, Evelyn said sarcastically. As long as you didn't actually commit adultery, I suppose we should all be grateful. Stay out of this, Evelyn. This is between me and Lucas. Like hell it is, Evelyn snapped. You made it everyone's business the moment you decided to act like a single woman while wearing my son's ring. I am not going to be lectured by a woman who's never worked a day in her life about what marriage means. Valerie. Lucas's voice cut through the room like a whip. That's enough. But I was past caring about anyone's feelings. The wine and the adrenaline had made me reckless. No, Lucas, it's not enough. I'm sick of being treated like a criminal for having one night of fun. I'm sick of your mother acting like she owns you. And I'm sick of you acting like some kind of victim when you're the one who's been neglecting your wife for months. Neglecting you? Lucas stood up slowly. And for the first time since I'd known him, he looked genuinely intimidating. I work 60 hours a week to support this family. I come home every night. I help with homework. I go to soccer games. I try to have conversations with you that you dismiss or ignore. What exactly have I been neglecting? When was the last time you looked at me the way that man looked at me? When was the last time you made me feel beautiful or desired? Or like I was anything more than just the woman who does your laundry? I tell you you're beautiful all the time. While you're reading your phone? Or watching TV? When was the last time you really looked at me, Valerie? The silence that followed was deafening. Lily had started crying quietly. Marcus was trying to comfort her. Evelyn looked like she wanted to throw me out of the house bodily. So this is my fault, Lucas said finally. My wife flirts with other men because I don't compliment her enough. I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm saying that maybe if you paid half as much attention to your wife as you do to your spreadsheets, she wouldn't need to look elsewhere for validation. Look elsewhere for validation? Marcus repeated incredulously. Jesus Christ, Val. Do you hear yourself? Don't you start with me, Marcus. You're 31 years old, and you've never had a relationship last longer than 6 months. Maybe you're not the best person to give marriage advice. At least, I don't cheat on people. I didn't cheat. You would have, Lucas said quietly. If I hadn't been there watching, if that guy had asked you to leave with him, you would have done it. The accusation hit me like a slap, because deep down, I knew he might be right. In that moment on the dance floor, with Caleb's hands on my body and his whispered promises in my ear, I had felt more alive than I had in years. And yes, when he'd suggested the night didn't have to end with the music, I had been tempted. That's not true, I said, but my voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? Lucas asked. Because from where I was standing, it looked like you were having the time of your life pretending to be someone else. Someone who wasn't married to me. Maybe I was, I said, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. Maybe for one night, I wanted to remember what it felt like to be desired, instead of taken for granted. The hurt that flashed across Lucas's face was so raw, so genuine, that for a moment I wanted to take it back. But the damage was done. The words were out there, hanging in the air between us like a chasm that could never be crossed. Well, he said finally, I guess that answers that. He walked over to Lily and gently lifted her from her chair. Come on, sweetheart, let's get you home. What about dessert? Lily sniffled. Grandma will save you some cake for next time, Lucas said, kissing the top of her head. As Lucas carried our daughter toward the door, I realized that everyone in the room was staring at me, with expressions ranging from disgust to pity. I hope it was worth it, Evelyn said as I gathered my purse and coat. I don't know what you mean. That dance. That moment of feeling desired. I hope it was worth destroying your family. Monday morning arrived with all the subtlety of a freight train. I dragged myself to my office at Henderson & Associates, where I worked as a marketing manager. 3 days had passed since the dinner. 3 days of absolute silence from Lucas. We lived in the same house, but we were ghosts to each other. He slept in the guest room. He left for work before I woke up. He came home after I was in bed. He spoke only to Lily. I assumed he was playing a game. The silent treatment. Punishment for my crimes. I tried to focus on work, but concentration was impossible. Every time someone walked past my office with the glass walls, I wondered if they were talking about me. Did they know? Had Linda Morrison spread the gossip yet? Around noon, a courier appeared at my office door. Valerie Vane? That's me. He handed me a large manila envelope with my name printed in bold letters across the front. The return address was from Hartley, Morrison and Associates, a law firm I'd never heard of. My hands trembled as I tore open the envelope. Inside were several official-looking documents, but the cover letter made my blood run cold. Dear Mrs. Vane, we represent your husband, Daniel Lucas Vane, in the matter of your marital separation. Please find enclosed a petition for legal separation, temporary custody arrangements for your minor child, and a proposed division of marital assets. You have 30 days to respond to this petition. We strongly advise you to seek legal representation immediately. The papers slipped from my fingers and scattered across my office floor. Legal separation, custody arrangements, division of assets. The words swam before my eyes as the full reality of the situation hit me. Lucas wasn't just giving me the silent treatment, he was leaving me. I fumbled for my phone and called his number. It went straight to voicemail. I tried texting, Lucas, we need to talk. Now. No response. Panic began to claw at my throat. I left work immediately, claiming a family emergency. I drove across town to our house, my mind racing with possibilities. Maybe this was just a scare tactic. Maybe he was trying to teach me a lesson. But when I walked into the house, the silence was deafening. It felt different, emptier somehow. I ran to Lucas's home office. His laptop was gone. His framed degrees were missing from the wall. The desk was bare. I ran upstairs to our bedroom. His side of the closet was empty, systematically cleared out. Work clothes, casual clothes, shoes, even the old shoebox of photos he kept on the top shelf. Gone. I ran to the bathroom. His toothbrush, his razor, his cologne, all gone. But it was what I found on the kitchen counter that made my knees buckle. A single sheet of paper with a note in Lucas's careful handwriting. Valerie, I need some time to think. Away from you. Lily will stay with you during the week and with me on weekends until we figure this out permanently. I have transferred half of our joint savings into a separate account for you. The rest is frozen until the lawyers sort it out. Please don't try to contact me directly. Speak to my lawyer. D. Lucas Vane. Beneath the note was a printout of our joint bank account activity. Several large withdrawals had been made that morning, along with a transfer of funds to an account I didn't recognize. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the paper. I called Marcus. He left, I said the moment he answered. He actually left. I know, Marcus said. His voice was tired. He's staying at a hotel downtown. Which one? Marcus, tell me which one. I have to fix this. Val, maybe you should give him some space. Space? He served me with divorce papers. He emptied his closet. He took half our money. Tell me where he is. There was a long pause. The Marriott downtown. Room 412. Thank you, Valerie. Be careful. He's not the same person you think he is right now. I hung up before he could finish. I didn't care if Lucas had changed. I was going to get my husband back. I was not going to let a stupid bet ruin my life. I pounded on the door of room 412. Lucas, open the door. I know you're in there. A moment later, the door opened. Lucas stood there, still wearing his work suit, but without the tie. He looked calm, terrifyingly calm. Hello, Valerie. He stepped back to let me in. The hotel room was standard. Beige walls, abstract art, a king-sized bed that looked too big for one person. What is this? I waved the legal papers at him. Is this a joke? Does it look like a joke? You can't just serve me with separation papers because of one argument. It wasn't just one argument, Val. And you know it. It was one night, one stupid dance. I didn't sleep with him. I came home to you. Lucas walked over to the desk where his laptop sat open. Sit down. I don't want to sit down. I want you to come home. Sit down. The authority in his voice made me drop into the armchair by the window. Lucas turned the laptop so the screen faced me. You keep saying nothing happened. You keep saying it was harmless. He clicked a file. A video started playing. It was grainy, shot from a dark corner of the Cobalt Lounge. But the subjects were unmistakable. It was me. And Caleb? My arms were around his neck. My body was pressed against his. I watched myself whisper in his ear. I watched myself throw my head back and laugh. I watched Caleb run his hands down my back, lower and lower. And I didn't stop him. "Where did you get this?" I whispered. "I hired a private investigator, the Monday after it happened." You hired a PI to spy on me?" I needed to know if this was a pattern. If there were others. There weren't. You know there weren't. The investigator confirmed that. This was your first time. See? I told you. But he found something else interesting. Lucas clicked another file. An audio file. My voice filled the room. Clear as day. "For tonight, yes, I'm completely free." Then Caleb's voice. "You know, this doesn't have to end when the music stops." And my response. The one I had tried to forget. The one I had buried deep in my memory. "I hope not." The silence in the hotel room was absolute. "You recorded me?" The PI has high-quality equipment. Directional microphones. That's illegal. Actually, in a public place with no expectation of privacy, it's perfectly legal. Or so my lawyer tells me. He pulled a stack of papers from a folder on the desk. And then there are the text messages. He tossed the papers onto my lap. They were screenshots. My texts with Sienna, Valerie. "Oh my God, he is so hot. I think I'm gonna win this bet." Sienna. "Get it, girl. Does he know about Mr. Boring at home?" Valerie. "What Lucas doesn't know won't hurt him. Besides, I deserve a night off from being a saint." Valerie. "He thinks I'm at a book club. God, he's so gullible." I stared at the messages. Seeing them printed out in black and white made them look so much worse. So much colder. "I was just venting," I stammered. "It was just girl talk." "Is that what you call calling your husband gullible, boring, a saint you need a break from?" Lucas leaned against the desk. He crossed his arms over his chest. "You know what the worst part is, Val?" I shook my head, unable to speak. "It's not the dancing. It's not even the lying about being single." He looked me right in the eye. "It's seeing how happy you looked. How alive. You looked more like yourself in that video than you have with me in 5 years." "That's not true," I whispered. Tears were streaming down my face now. "Isn't it? When was the last time you looked at me like that? When was the last time you touched me like that?" I opened my mouth to argue, to defend myself. But I couldn't. Because he was right. I had been bored. I had been resentful. I had treated his stability as a cage instead of a foundation. And now the cage was open. And I was standing in the rubble of my own making. "I can change," I said. My voice was thick with tears. "We can go to counseling. I'll stop seeing Sienna. I'll do whatever it takes." Lucas looked at me. His expression was tired. Sad. "I believe you would try, Val. For a while. Until you got bored again. Until the next time you felt like you deserved something more exciting." "No, I promise. I can't live like that. Wondering if I'm enough. Wondering if my wife is laughing at me behind my back with her friends." He walked over to the door and opened it. "Go home, Valerie. Please, Lucas. Don't do this. I'm not doing this. You did this. You made the choice. Every step of the way. You chose the bet, you chose the dress, you chose the bar, you chose the man, you chose to lie. If you hadn't been there, if I hadn't been there, what?" He looked at me with a terrifying intensity. "That's the final question, isn't it? If I hadn't been standing in that doorway, if I hadn't seen you, if you hadn't come home to find me waiting." He leaned closer. "Would you have gotten in a cab with him?" I froze. The question hung in the air. And in the silence, the truth screamed louder than any defense I could muster. If Lucas hadn't been there, if I hadn't felt that sudden chill of being watched, if Caleb had taken my hand and led me toward the exit, I would have said yes. I didn't say it out loud. I couldn't. But Lucas saw it in my eyes. He nodded slowly, a look of grim satisfaction settling on his face. "Goodbye, Valerie." I walked out of the hotel room. The door clicked shut behind me with a finality that echoed in my bones. I drove home in a daze. The house was dark when I arrived. Empty. I walked into the kitchen. I saw the empty spot where Lucas's coffee mug used to be. I walked up to the bedroom. I saw the empty side of the closet. I sat down on the edge of the bed. The sheets still smelled faintly of him. Soap and paper and stability. I pulled out my phone. I opened the gallery. I scrolled past the hundreds of photos of Lily. Past the photos of our vacations, past the photos of our wedding, and I stopped at a selfie I had taken in the bathroom of the Cobalt Lounge. Red lipstick, tight dress, eyes sparkling with reckless anticipation. I looked beautiful. I looked dangerous. I looked free. I had won the bet. I had proved that I could still turn heads, that I could still be desired. I had gotten exactly what I wanted. I was free. I looked around the empty, silent room, and I realized that the price of those 45 minutes of fun